But I'm very glad to say that Vanessa has managed to join us now, after all. And Vanessa, welcome to the program. The war apparently beginning to expand towards Syria.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a low-key intensity war against Syria for more than a decade now from Israel. But we've seen the expansion, heavy expansion into Lebanon, now more than 2,000 dead, 9,000 to 10,000 injured in Lebanon, not mentioning, of course, the genocide in Gaza. So last night, Israel was defending itself by bombing 3 residential apartments in the middle of the city of Damascus in an area called Mezzeh. You can see there it's pretty built up. 9 civilians dead, 11 plus injured, and still searching for people under the rubble. The claim by Israel is that they were targeting IRGC, the Iranian forces, commanders. Iran has denied the death of any Iranian citizen. Then they changed it to a Hezbollah commander responsible for allegedly smuggling weapons. That's also not yet been confirmed, but we do know that these 9 civilians have died, one of whom was Dr. Rahaf Kamhir, urologist with the Damascus Health Directorate. And then an entire family of Yemeni civilians, Yemeni professor Dr. Shohi al-Aoud, his wife and 3 daughters were killed in the bombing. And then the Ministry of Defense in Syria put out an official statement sort of around 2015. So again, this is a very busy time in the city center. The Israeli enemy launched an air aggression with 3 missiles from the direction of the occupied Syrian Golan in the south, targeting a residential and commercial building in the densely populated Mezzeh neighborhood, which led to the martyrdom of 7, it's now 9, including children and women, and the injury of 11 others as an initial toll. And work is still ongoing, as they say, to rescue others from the rubble. But I just wanted to bring people up to speed with what the intention potentially is, of course, not only in Syria and Lebanon and in Palestine, but in the entire region. So at Netanyahu's speech at the UNGA, you had the curse and the blessing. Well, the curse, of course, is Syria, Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, and we presume Palestine, although they're not even marked on the map. The blessing, as we've talked about before, also is effectively the Indian Middle East economic corridor going through Saudi Arabia, the occupied territories of Palestine, and then Egypt and into Europe. Also isolating Turkey, which is another point we can possibly talk about in extra. Then basically a few days ago, Israel bombed the main border road from Syria to Lebanon on both sides. You can see that the crater is quite extensive. Again, the claim was that they were targeting tunnels that were being used for carrying weapons. There is, of course, no sign of any weapons, but Syria is now completely isolated, and Lebanon is unable to send refugees into Syria for safety. Now, I just wanted to spend some time. You're going to look at this map and think, what on earth is she doing? But I just wanted to point out the threats that now face Syria. So effectively, in the last week or so, we've had a series of bombing raids by the Israelis that have effectively been trying to clear pathways through the Syrian air defense and radar systems in the south, to the west on the coast, and centrally near Homs, which is there written as Hims, which is how it's sometimes written, but you can see it on the map. In the south, the greatest threat is actually of invasion by the Israeli forces from the occupied Golan territories in the sort of the southwestern corner of Syria. And why I've put that red circle, that's where I think Israel intends to try to reach. So it's going to intend to try to harness the remaining terrorist forces in the south, the separatist Druze, the Al Tanif military base of the US, which is also housing and training multiple armed groups, Rukban refugee camp, which is rather euphemistically called a refugee camp. It is also a recruitment and training ground. for the various extremist groups. That's in the blue on the eastern border with Jordan. So they will have the support of the Al-Tanf camp. They will have the support of factions in the south. And of course, that has been their intention from the beginning of the regime change war against Syria. The little sort of lightning strike there is the closure of borders with Lebanon, which again, as I said, isolates Syria. We know that NATO forces have been gathering in the north. We know that British military intelligence operations have been ongoing in the north of Lebanon, potentially, of course, targeting the border with Homs in Syria. We recently had strikes from Israel, but coordinated also with the terrorists in Idlib in the northwest of Syria, coming in from the eastern Mediterranean. And I'm circling Cyprus because I do believe there's also a threat from the gathering of NATO forces in Cyprus if there is to be an escalation of the war against Syria. Now, in the northwest, you'll see there it's been announced that Jolani, the head of Al-Qaeda, or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, as it's now known, previously ISIS, it's been announced that he's going to be leading a major ground assault in that area with drones and ground forces. We also know that Ukrainian special intelligence forces have been in Idlib, both to recruit terrorist forces to go to Ukraine, but also, we assume, training the terrorist forces in the northwest. Now, in the red square, you will see Abu Kamal, which is the last remaining open corridor under the control of Iraq and Syria. So the US is now, or has been for some time, attempting to take control of that corridor to completely close that eastern border for Syria. And of course, the northeast there is occupied by the Kurdish Contras, the Kurdish separatists under the control of Israel and the US, which is occupying the oil fields and agricultural resources in that area. So very much sort of heightened threat alert right now for Syria, and that appears to be where we're heading. And I just wanted to come back again to the Greater Israel map so people can understand why this is happening. Of course, 3/4 of Syrian territory is perceived to belong to Greater Israel. And where I've put the red circle is the area east of the Euphrates, occupied by the US and the Kurdish colonial settlers that have effectively ethnically cleansed much of that area of the Assyrian and Syrian population. So you can see precisely why the US is occupying that area in particular, to ensure that if Israel takes control of 3/4 of Syria, it will not be faced with an antagonistic state in that area. And, you know, many photos have been taken in Gaza of Israeli forces wearing a patch that shows very clearly the map of Greater Israel. And as we were talking about anti-Semitism, the support for this project and this agenda in Syria, in the entire region, is supported across the board in the EU, pretty much for the majority of EU countries, and certainly in the US and in the UK. And I just wanted to show this latest video of Trump talking about removing the Jew haters.
We will remove the jihadist sympathizers and Jew haters. We're going to remove the Jew haters who do nothing to help our country. They only want to destroy our country. And we will never let the horrors of October 7th be repeated here on American soil. We will not let that happen, and we will solve the problem that we have.
I wonder what he's going to do about the Jews that hate the Zionists. Interesting dilemma there, but we're just heading into uncharted territory, in my opinion, at the moment.
Yes, very interesting, Vanessa. Thank you very much for that. Now, if you like what the UK column does, you would like to support us, the place to go is support.ukcolumn.com. globalist.org. There are options to help us there. You could make a donation, or you could join as a member, and the various membership levels to join at. You pick something up at the UK Column shop if you can. And a couple of people asking what our relationship with clive2carl.com is. Well, it's an affiliate relationship. So if you buy something at clive2carl.com, it doesn't cost you any more money, but we will get a small percentage of that money that you spend. So that's helpful to us as well. And of course, it helps Clive too. So we applaud that if you possibly can. But please share any material you find on the various platforms. Use the share links that are on the UK Column website. And if you want to see the comments that go with the articles and videos, you can do so by clicking on that link there. Yesterday, the interview with Dr. Robert Everett, UK Column member, went out. Fantastic interview. And if you haven't seen that yet, please do have a look at it. It's on the front page of the UK Column website at the moment. And tomorrow, Charles, we're delighted that you have spoken to Chris Coverdale.
Yeah, Chris Coverdale gives an absolutely fascinating interview, which charts his many years of resisting tax because it is used with which to fund wars. And he describes this as being completely illegal according to UK legislation. So he plots the course between taking a position on tax resistance and reinforcing it by all various articles of legislation that show that that's what he believes he should do. So definitely worth tuning into to learn how he does what he does and why.
And at the weekend, you're speaking at an event.
Yes, that's right. Yes, in Stroud, run by Project Libertas, Your Life in Their Hands. And I'll be there with Gemma Cooper, Andrew Bridgen and Sandy Adams. So if you haven't yet got a ticket, do go to Eventbrite and search Project Libertas and Stroud.
Thank you, Charles. Now, we don't have a graphic for the UK Column event on the 19th of October because all the tickets are now sold. So we will maybe have another announcement about that in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, if you're in Glasgow and you'd like to take part in the Glasgow Peace March being run by standforpeace.co.uk, that is at 12:30 on Sunday, the 13th of October at George Square. Get along to that if you possibly can. And a reminder of the Alternative View live stream, which is taking place on Sunday, the 10th of November. Mark Anderson taking part in that alongside Pippa King, John Kitson and David Dubine. This is a follow-up to the Smart Cities Agenda live stream, which we hosted previously. And we'll be coming on to the topic of smart cities a little bit later in the programme. But let's move on, Vanessa, to the issue of smart cities.
Yeah, well, I wanted to try to to make the connections between what is happening right now in West Asia with Israel introducing the new order and the blessing and curse maps and so on, and how that basically interlinks with what is also coming and has been coming for some time in the West, because I think it's very easy to disconnect the two. So I'm going to have a quick look at Azerbaijan, which is, of course, on the border with Iran, and the small section there, Nagorno-Karabakh. Karabakh, thank you. Or Artsakh, as it's known by the Armenians. And, of course, that was a majority Armenian area that has effectively now been occupied by Azerbaijan. And as I said, is right on the border there with Iran. Remember the curse map? Iran is included in the direction of travel at the end of that journey of expansionism. So then let's have a look very quickly at the historic connection between Israel and Azerbaijan. So this was back in June last year. 92 flights from Israeli base reveal arms exports to Azerbaijan. Haaretz investigation reveals dozens of cargo flights from Baku to Israeli airstrip used for the export of explosives. Israel sells Azerbaijan weaponry worth billions and per sources receives oil and access to Iran. Tensions between Azerbaijan and both Iran and Armenia have ratcheted up recently. So let's have a look at what that includes. So they've had a strategic alliance with Azerbaijan for the past 2 decades, and they sell the large Shiite majority country weapons worth billions. In return, Azerbaijan supplies Israel with oil and access to Iran. According to foreign media reports, Azerbaijan has allowed the Mossad to set up a forward branch to monitor what is happening in Iran, Azerbaijan's neighbor to the south, and has even prepared an airfield intended to aid Israel in case it decides to attack Iranian nuclear sites. Reports from 2 years ago stated that the Mossad agents who stole the Iranian nuclear archive smuggled it to Israel via Azerbaijan. And according to official reports from Azerbaijan over the years, Israel has sold it the most advanced weapon systems, including ballistic missiles, air defense, and electronic warfare systems, kamikaze drones, and more. And of course, we shouldn't forget that the helicopter of President Raisi and Foreign Minister Abdul Hayyan of Iran crashed very close to the border with Azerbaijan. So coming forward, Israel offered Azerbaijan cooperation to create smart cities. Guess where? In Nagorno-Karabakh. So in an area basically that is occupied and inhabited by majority Armenians. This you can freeze frame and read. I'm not going to read all of it, but clearly the smart city is exactly what we know it to be. A way to control information, to control your electricity and water supply and usage, to control education, to control your movements, or at least to surveil your movements, exactly as we expect it to be in the West when they are introduced or are being introduced. But this then becomes, of course, interesting. This connects back to Palestine. This is a documentary made by Mint Press News. Manar Adli, automated apartheid, walking through Hebron Smart City. And remember, we've talked about Unit 8200, the various tech startups and surveillance startups in Israel that now have their tentacles basically across the West, but particularly in the UK. So let's have a look at what Manar said about, you can go to the Mint Press report. The link will be in the notes, of course, and you can actually watch the documentary. I do recommend it. So she talks about the largest city in the West Bank where history collides with the modern hum of daily life. This Sentinel is not a person, but a network of surveillance technology known ominously as the Hebron Smart City. Designed by Israeli authorities, this system blankets the city in a web of cameras, sensors, and even automated weapons, tracking every movement of its Palestinian residents. Palestinians in Hebron are the most surveilled people on the planet, highlighting the omnipresence of cameras and face scanning technology. Adli says that the area, also known as Al-Khalil to Palestinians, has become a testing ground for Israel's surveillance apparatus with advanced technologies like the Wolfpack surveillance system in operation. This system collects vast amounts of data on Palestinians, including their personal details and movements, creating an atmosphere of constant surveillance, even inside the houses of the Palestinians living in Hebron. And of course, I have to bring you full circle, in that case, back to the 2030 Israel-UK roadmap, bilateral relations. The roadmap is an ambitious agreement to ensure the UK and Israel's partnership remains forward-looking and continues to innovate to address shared challenges. Let's have a look at this being described not only as a collaboration, but as an actual partnership. Israel and the UK are united in the common belief that a democracy which empowers citizens with the opportunity to innovate, create, and fulfill their dreams is the finest form of government. We are clear that democratic norms are the mainstay for maintaining a rules-based international system and respect for universal human rights. It's very hard not to feel extremely ironic about this statement. As outward-looking patriotic nations, we know that a mutually prosperous future lies in stronger economic, technological, and security ties with like-minded partners. In order to meet our ambitions, we will upgrade the institutional mechanisms that enable us to set and achieve goals across our mutual priorities. Now, we know for a fact, of course, that which Israel is looking to introduce into UK society has been developed through genocide in Palestine.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. Thank you very much. Charles, that's, I suppose continuing with a theme on